Well, look what finally came off early access. Brought to us by Supergiant Games, Hades 2 is the long-awaited sequel to Hades the First, starring Melinoë, the younger sister of Zagreus, who's tasked with breaking into the underworld to murk her grandfather in revenge for him putting her entire family in timeout. And ye gods and little fishes, it feels like we've been waiting forever for this. I know a year and a half isn't really that long of a time in early access, all things considered, but I've been playing it the entire time and waiting patiently for the full release, so let's just say I've been ready and waiting to make this video for a very long time. I even made my very first impressions video on it. Don't watch that, by the way, my audio was nightmarishly bad. And wow, a lot has changed since the first days of early access. You'd almost think there'd been a bunch of major updates by one of the most reliable studios in the current day or something. As I mentioned in my Silksong review, the big question that often has to be asked about a sequel is whether it shows significant growth from the original or is just more of the same. And I'll just be upfront, I think this game improves upon literally every aspect of the first game, with Supergiant using everything they learned from the original to soar to greater heights than ever before. So if you're looking for a recommendation, there it is, thumbs up, play this game because it's really fucking good. But you should also stick around for my review because I'm both hilarious and helpful and also very humble. So there are definitely worse ways to spend an hour of your time. Also, quick disclaimer, there will be some spoilers ahead as I talk about the characters in the story, but I'll avoid talking about the endings and some of the more important character moments, so you won't have to worry about anything major. And while I normally give my criticisms their own section in my reviews, I don't actually have enough to justify that in this video, so they'll just sort of be dispersed throughout and come up when necessary, okay? Okay. Alright, let's get started, shall we? Let's talk about why Hades 2 is the perfect sequel that all fans of the first game should be playing.
Your training shall never be complete. And I would know if you stand any chance at all against our enemy.
Okay, so if you've played Zagreus, then you'll be well equipped for your foray into the twisting wilds of Erebus with his witchy little sister. The primary gameplay loop of this godlike roguelike plays much the same as the first. You hack, perchance you slash, dodge, cast, collect boons and upgrade materials, and generally wreak havoc and slaughter your way through room after room of baddies until you either die or face the boss of the area, here dubbed Guardians, get your speedy little ass handed to you because you haven't figured out their quirks and attack patterns yet, return to Shadows, wake up in your tent, and then do it all over again until you win or get sick of playing and turn the game off because that's how roguelikes work. Are we all clear? That isn't to say it's all the same, of course. Oh no my friends. We have a lovely little array of gameplay tweaks and additions to go over. The first of which is this lovely little mana bar right over your health. I mean, the game calls it focus, but let's be real, it's blue and used for magic, it's a fucking mana bar. Being a witch, Melinoë comes with her fair share of special tricks, also known as Omega moves. By holding the attack, special or cast button, Mel can charge up a stronger variant that eats up a set amount of your mana per use. And if you don't have the mana, you can't use the attack. At the very start, you won't have a way to regain MP mid-encounter, but it does fully refill after you leave a room. So don't be shy about using your Omega attacks since they're the fastest way to kill what needs killing. Each weapon has their own unique Omega attacks with special MP costs, and some blessings specifically apply to Omega moves. So be sure to familiarize yourself with what each weapon does, which I'll get into in a little bit, and read the boon descriptions closely so you don't embarrass yourself in front of the whole class and return to Shadows in abject shame. Also, some boons will prime a certain amount of magic, giving you a permanently active buff that makes a portion of your mana unusable. Whether the priming is worth it is up to you, just know that they do tend to be useful, but they rarely prime a small amount. Outside her Omega moves, Melinoë's cast and dash are both notably different from Zagreus's. Instead of flinging your cast like you're flicking a particularly bloody bogey at an annoying sibling, Melinoë's cast instead plants a magic circle that expires after a few seconds and slows or stops most enemies, which makes it great for area control and will allow you to put some space between you and the screaming nightmare running up to give you the smooch of pain. Your plain vanilla original recipe cast won't deal any damage, but most cast specific blessings will change that, and your Omega cast will detonate upon expiration for a decent amount of damage. You can only ever use one at a time and have to wait for them to expire to cast again, but the base cast doesn't cost focus, so it's a valuable tool in your arsenal. Also, Hestia, Zeus, and Dionysus all have boons that allow you to project your cast further. Finally, we have Melinoë's dash, which is objectively better in every way because now you can hold a button to take off running in a full-on sprint. And this is honestly great, praise almighty chaos, because one of my biggest annoyances with the first game was how slowly Zagreus moved for someone who was allegedly in a hurry. So unless you got Hermes' movement upgrade, you just had to mash the dash button. You can't dash multiple times in a row and have to wait for the shadow trail to snap back to dash again, but now you can actually move like you've got somewhere to be. which you do. I mean, you just cannot be late for Grandpa's funeral. Also, I just realized this is the second game I've reviewed in less than a month that came out 7 years after the original and stars a sister figure to the protagonist of the original game who can sprint. Weird coincidence. So that's it for your basic moveset, but who cares about that when what's really important is the heavy chunks of metal and magic you can use to pummel the elderly into a fine, smelly sand. So let's go over those quick before we move on to the boons and the non-combat mechanics. Also, just like in the first game, each weapon has multiple different aspects to unlock and upgrade, which I will not be explaining comprehensively because it would take forever and I have ADHD, but I will tell you my favorites. Deskira, the Witch's Staff, is your starting weapon and the best all-rounder, with a decently fast attack and a ranged special that can be upgraded into a linear explosion and an exploding orb respectively. My favourite aspect is that of Momus, which leaves behind a serpent that will refire your Omega moves twice at no focus cost, and is probably the single most broken weapon form once fully upgraded. It's super fun, cannot recommend it enough. The Sister Blades, Lim and Oros, are your standard close-up speedy stabbers with a boomerang throw as your special. Charging them turns your attack into a short-range teleport slash, and your special turns into a fan of thrown blades for hitting groups. My favourite form is the aspect of Pan, which causes your special to seek out enemies caught in your cast, even if you throw it in the opposite direction. Also, it has the best hidden aspect, just gonna put that out there. Ignium, the Umbral Flames, is your dedicated mid-range fireball thrower, and winner of the title of Most Improved from Early Access. Because now it's just basically decent, since it no longer feels like you're just blowing bubbles at the enemy. You can hold down the attack button to throw fire and it automatically omegas after a couple of hits, and the special spawns a planetoid fireball that gets upgraded to 2 fireballs if you omega cast. Be still my fucking heart. My favourite aspect is Eos because it summons a Daybreaker that follows enemies and blasts them periodically. Though I will say, the aspect of Malinois is incredibly OP when combined with boons like Fine Line or Ocean Swell, so keep an eye out for those if you enjoy the flames. Zorafeth, the Moonstone Axe, is your state-mandated giant fuck-off crushing slab that belongs in a Dark Souls game that hits the hardest and swings the slowest. It's also got the most fun Omega attack because you just charge up and tornado your way through anything dumb enough to not get the fuck out of your way. And the Omega special is a long-wave shockwave blast, which is also fun. I don't have a favourite aspect, they're all really useful. It would be my favourite weapon overall if it wasn't so fucking slow. And then there's Kacinth, the black coat and owner of the hardest name to say. It's a sort of shadow armor jetpack hybrid thing that's honestly just really fun. You punch things to death and fire seeking missiles, with the Omega attack giving you a barrier that blocks most damage before blasting your enemy with a laser, and your Omega special firing a volley of missiles that lock on. My favourite aspect is Selene's, since it has a special hex that calls moonbeams onto your foes and makes them more susceptible to your Omega attacks. It's really great. Okay, moving on, we have... What? Aren't you forgetting one, Writin? No? Writin. God, okay, fine. There's also the skull, which is... It's fine, it's not my favourite. I don't like having limited ammo, but it works just fine. Your Mega Attack launches an AoE missile, your Mega Special dashes forward and sends out shockwaves. My favourite aspect is Persephone's because it upgrades some of your boons. It's fine, okay? It gets the job done and it gets your boons stronger faster, okay? It's fine. Anyway, speaking of boons...
In the name of Hades, Olympus, I accept this message.
So Hades 2 saw the return of old faces and the reveal of both new gods and new allies to help you on your way. Boons were the big unique selling point of the first game, and now they're back and better than ever, and I really do mean that. One of the complaints people had with the first game was that, when it really came down to it, the boons were kind of interchangeable, largely just consisting of doing incrementally more color-coded damage with, at the end of the day, not a lot to really make anything feel like it stood out fun-wise. Also, Athena, Aphrodite and Dionysus were objectively the best, and in my experience, if you really want to get shit done, you'd get a mix of theirs and only pick the others for a break from the purple and pink and gold. Well that, I'm happy to report, has vastly changed in the sequel. Not only do boons actually feel distinct from each other in a large way, with fun new effects and combinations, and no single Olympian being clearly the best or the worst, but they actually feel more powerful now. Plus, duo boons are provably stronger and easier to get. I started a new game for this video and my second or third run got me 2 different duos. It was very fun. The returning gods have also changed their looks, not just their blessings. So let's go down the list and get to know them, shall we? They fall into 3 different categories, that being standard, non-standard, and NPC, so we'll get to them in that order. Shiny romantic disaster boy Apollo is the first you'll meet in your journey and the first new god of the game, so it only makes sense to start with him. The Nova effect is Apollo's main gift, which increases the size of your attacks as well as their damage, and his curse, aka the status debuff that he inflicts, is the Daze effect, which gives your opponent's attacks a chance to miss. He actually has a wide variety of additional effects, such as double attacks, backstab damage, and his dash boon is the only one of this group that actually increases your movement speed, making it objectively better than anyone else's because everyone's favourite blacksmith is here and just rocking the sexy shirtless dwarf look. Hephaestus's volcanic strike and flourish cause a small AoE burst of set damage that requires a cooldown, and the higher the rarity or more palms you invest in them, the shorter that cooldown will be. And his status curse is Glow, which increases damage taken by 15%. Also, remember how armoured foes were a pain in the ancient Greek ass in the last game? Well, Hades 2 actually allows you to gain armour yourself, and Hephaestus's boons are the easiest way to get it. Speaking of gain, each of the core gods has a gain boon that replenishes your mana, and his sticks out in that it requires you to be hit, but it lowers all damage taken by a set amount as well, which is really cool. He's a solid choice in any situation. Estia is also here and sounding weirdly cockney, but then who am I to judge? Scorch is her main thing, a damage over time curse that builds with each successive hit and caps at 999, except in one special circumstance, and she also lets you shoot fireballs and blow enemies up when they die. Simple, straightforward, hot, hot, hot. The last new Olympian is Hera, who is both a legendary bitch and, I'll be honest, proof that Zeus is fucking blind. Holy shit, the people are eating well tonight. Fittingly for the goddess of marriage, Hera's main thing is the hitch effect, which links enemies together and causes them to share damage, which works great with your battle axe if you spin in a crowd and create an endless cycle of torment. Insert unfunny boomer humor about marriage here. Her boons also revolve around rarity, either increasing the rarity of your boons or upping your damage if they're all rare or better. Her gain effect is also notable in that it primes an amount of your mana until the encounter is over, but also instantly restores it and allows you to use the amount where you normally wouldn't. Also, I need to get this off my chest, so it's going here. Her dash boon makes the single worst noise in the entire game and I fucking hate it. It's like someone's dragging seaweed over my eardrums. It is the worst fucking thing. And first up for the returning Olympians is Aphrodite, who has reached the monumental achievement of somehow feeling even more naked than in the first game. While she still allows you to inflict weak on enemies, only your cast, dash and gain boons will actually inflict it, with her attack and special changing to the Flutter effect, which grants a massive damage boost against nearby enemies, and the rest of her boons largely revolve around healing and increasing your damage, as well as Spiritual Affirmation, which increases your health and mana by a decent amount. She's honestly still one of the very best. Proof positive that the power of love and incredible violence conquers all. Grandma is also back and dressed for the slaughter. Demeter's main boon now inflicts freeze, which just fully stops enemies in their tracks and keeps them from attacking, except for bosses, which it just sort of slows. She can also slow and damage enemies with her gust blessings and improve the rarity of your boons with steady growth, which you should always take if it's offered. It's so fucking useful, holy shit. High Lord Fuckboy has also returned, and naturally his boons are all lightning based. The biggest change is that his chain lightning has been relegated to a primed effect and been replaced otherwise with the blitz effect, which puts a little storm cloud over the target's head and strikes them after they take 120 damage, which is a lot more feasible now that the weapons have all been buffed since early access. Other than that, not much else to say. Zeus is still Zeus. Poseidon is also back and has gone through a similar level of change to his brother. No longer focused on knockback and rupture, his big new things are the splash and froth effect, with froth being actually super useful, giving a 25% chance of dealing an additional 50 damage per hit while active, and his Slippery Slope boon increases the damage further. By far though, the best boon he gives is Sea Star, which has a chance of spawning a copy of any non-boon reward you find, and can absolutely break the economy with just a little bit of luck. Finally, there's Ares, who's tossed aside the Doom effect in favour of Wounds, which deals increased damage and an additional flat 50 damage every 3 seconds. His boons largely revolve around spilling blood, which increases your attack and movement speed when collected, as well as granting the chance to deal 200% damage, and a few falling blade effects for good measure. I'll be honest, I like him more in this game, and not just because he's drawn even hornier than Aphrodite. So that's it for the standard boon givers. Just like in the first game, you can't double up on the same boon slot, and you're sometimes given the sacrifice option that replaces the boon of one god with a rarer boon of another. So far so familiar, but we have two more smaller groups to talk about before we move on to the non-combat mechanics. So let's lightning round and get a move on, shall we? Speaking of moving, Hermes is back and faster than ever, with his boons still buffing your speed, evasion, and wealth. Chaos is also back, and while I'll be talking about their redesign a little later, mechanically they're basically the same, but their boons have much stronger benefits. Also, do you remember the Call ability? Well, it's been replaced by the Hex mechanic, which comes from the boon of Selene. These are actually way more fun and come in a variety of different forms, such as polymorphing enemies, firing the Kamehameha, slowing time, zombie minion, healing yourself mid-fight, Sora's anti-form, and just straight up dropping a nuke on whatever looks at you funny. Your Hex charges up as you spend focus points, and after selecting your Hex, Selene's boons are replaced by the Path of Stars, which gives you points to spend on upgrading your Hex for the night. Finally, you can eventually unlock the God-sent Hex, which allows your Hex to activate an ability related to a specific Olympian once or twice a fight. Overall, the Hex system is a lot more dynamic and fun than the Call system, as well as extremely fucking broken once you fully upgraded it. Definitely recommended. Punish them in the name of the moon. Last but not least, we have the NPC boon givers, who are defined by the fact that they only appear in specific locations on some nights. Artemis is the first you'll come across, appearing in Erebus, Oceanus, and Ephira, where she'll assist you in a fight and then grant a boon largely based around increasing your crit rate or dealing damage with arrows. And yes, support fire is still as amazing as ever. More so actually, because the base damage has been given a huge bump and it can still benefit from other damage boosting boons. Athena is also back and fully serving for the lesbians in the audience. Her boons are largely the same as before, but now some of them have a cooldown to their effect to balance out how absurdly broken deflection actually is when you get down to it. You can only find her on Olympus, where she appears and smites the entire screen at once. Dionysus is also hanging out on Olympus and hiding in his cuffs, but in a depressed way this time, and hey, can I show this without being demonetized? Hangover has been massively nerfed, as while it deals way more damage, it also can only be procced one time on each enemy. The rest of its boons are themed around drinking or things that only seem like good ideas when you were drunk. And finally, dear old dad can be found in his timeout chamber in Tartarus, where his boons generally help you deal increased damage or specifically debuff Kronos, since there's absolutely no love lost there. The last detail of note is that each boon also has an elemental affinity attached, which you can unlock fairly early on to utilize infusions. Infusions generally rely on having a certain number of one element, and once the threshold has been reached, it will remain active for the rest of the night, granting bonuses like increased damage, dodge chance, or even damage reduction. Each standard boon giver as well as Hermes has a specific infusion, and they're well worth investing in. Overall, I think that combat is far more fun in this game. Malinois has lower health than Zagreus, but you're meant to get into that witchy mindset, leaning on your magic and clever tactics over simple speed and brute force. It's also just easier to feel strong in this game, with broken combinations and a wider variety of boon effects, and therefore more dynamic combat as a result, without losing the feel from the first game. And this isn't to say it's easier, the game is actually quite a bit harder at times, with a wider variety of enemy attacks and boss patterns. And if you do feel like it's too easy, you can always apply the Oath of the Unseen, which is this game's pact of punishment, especially where the Vow of Rivals is concerned, which makes the bosses much harder and drastically changes things up. So definitely give that a look once you unlock it if you really fancy being poisoned, drowned, crushed, exploded, or getting spanked by mommy. It provides all the challenges you could ever need so you can really eat shit.
Perfect.
Okay, there are a lot of things outside of combat, so I'm just going to go over the essentials and the biggest changes. Much like in the first game, you wake up each night back at base and chat with people, maybe give a few gifts and flirt a little, choose your weapon, and head out to either kill or be killed. And the biggest change to the formula is the cauldron and incantations. Since Mel is a witch and witches do be casting spells and all that, incantations are how you'll achieve permanent upgrades to the camp and gameplay. There are some that Malinois will just automatically know when something comes up, but others can only be gained from speaking to specific NPCs at certain points in the game. And to cast your spells, you're going to need reagents. Reagents are the random pickups you find each night that aren't lost upon death. Things like flowers, precious metals, the tears of Cerberus, the distilled essence of the moon and the stars and fear itself, and wool. Also a never-ending supply of fucking garbage, thanks Eris. Some can be bought, some can only be obtained by planting them in your garden and waiting for them to grow, while others can only be gained by beating bosses or completing chaos trials. So try to keep track of which random bits and bobs come from what and where. Next, we have your Arcana, which replaces the Mirror of Night and is how you upgrade Melinoë herself. The cards themselves are unlocked with Ash at first and then rarer reagents as their effects grow more powerful. And you can unlock an incantation that allows you to upgrade most cards twice. However, you'll also need to upgrade your Grasp meter to activate more cards at once, which will require Psyche and maxes out at 30 Grasp. You can buy Psyche from the merchant, but the only reliable way to get it is by playing the Shade minigame, which nets you far more at 0 cost. And you don't even have to play the minigame if you have Freenos with you, which leads us to your familiars. After a few nights of getting past Hecate, she'll give you an incantation that allows you to bring an animal familiar out with you, which I seriously cannot recommend enough. Each familiar will assist in combat, boost one of your stats, and collect a resource for you, while increasing the likelihood of finding those resources at the same time. Freenos the Toad raises your HP and pacifies shades for you. Tula the Cat fishes and grants you an extra death defiance. Rocky the Raven ups your crit chance and mines metals for you. Hecuba the Hound increases your MP and digs up seeds, and Gale the Polecat increases your move speed and dodge chance and collects flowers for you. They're all valuable additions to your arsenal and are also really cute, and yes, you can pet the dog. You can pet all of them, so go nuts and live your best life. The next big thing of note is the change to keepsakes. The system still functions the same, give a gift and get a gift in return, and clear encounters with them to level them up. But keepsakes as a whole have kind of been buffed. None of them are as delightfully abusable as the palm blossom or the pinned butterfly was, but each of them fills a specific niche, and all of them fill that niche phenomenally. My absolute favourite change is actually to the Olympian keepsakes, which both guarantee you will encounter the related Olympian in the next area, and just straight up allow you to rarify an offered blessing once a night as opposed to just raising the chance of finding a rarer boon. This is such a fucking improvement. Also, just gonna put this out there, Moros has one of the best keepsakes for the early game, and Odysseus and Medea's are especially helpful against bosses, so maybe equip those if you're struggling with Kronos or Prometheus. Just saying, they might save your life, holy shit. And last of all for this segment, Nectar and Ambrosia are still the way to improve your relationships with characters, and yes, you can romance a few of them as well, which I go into detail in the These Witches Gay segment. However, the relationship meters are longer this time, and also include fishing lures and bath salts for most members of the Crossroads, so keep that in mind for when you feel like hanging out by the river or boiling yourself with some hot people. Oh, they're so pretty. Speaking of pretty things, god, this game looks so good. The visuals as a whole have gotten a massive glow up since the first game. Everything's crisper, smoother, and in general, far better animated. This isn't a point against the first game, by the way, it's just an acknowledgement of what 7 years of growth can accomplish, both in terms of artistic skill and programming ability. The game just runs and animates faster and smoother, even with the particle effects bonanza that's happening on screen at any given moment. I also like that it's far more colourful than the first, and not just the regions either. All of the returning gods have been given fucking gorgeous redesigns and I honestly love them. There's a beautiful shimmer effect to most of the gods and titans, and in some rather interesting ways, such as how Artemis's eyes flash to visually reinforce her role as both a hunter and a sharpshooter, or how Hermes has a blur to his edges to symbolise that Melinoë needs glasses. A lot of the designs are also filled with references to Greek mythology and even other characters, both big and small, such as Aphrodite wearing Ares' war paint, and also being a reference to Aphrodite Aria, the specific form the Spartans worshipped her in, or his pose being a reference to the Ludovici Ares statue. It's another demonstration of Supergiant's spectacular attention to detail. Tell me your favourites in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, we can't talk about presentation without talking about the music and sound design, which is... Okay, can I Yeah, done? Yeah, it's really good. Still one of the best fucking songs in the game, by the way. But it's not just Scylla's absolute bop, the whole game just sounds better, which I mentioned back in my first impressions and my feelings haven't changed. They've toned down the reverb on the characters' voices, so now I can better appreciate the extremely sexy voice acting this game has, and the music is also just completely fucking superior. A lot of variety too, from haunting beauty to swelling orchestras and kick-ass rock tracks, so it doesn't have the first game's problem of sounding like the majority of the music was composed by tasing a theremin at increasingly higher voltages, which is always a plus. Also, each Olympian has a couple specific sounds associated with them, which is honestly kind of a mixed bag. You're definitely going to get sick of hearing peacock cries if you favour Hera's Boons, especially if you use a lot of Omega moves. Overall, I think the game just presents far better than the first, and it goes a long way in helping you to enjoy the amount of repetition the roguelike formula requires.
This old unfinished painting. Don't look away. Don't forget all that the Titan took from you.
Alright, so if you didn't know, Hades 2 is the story of Melinoë, the younger sister of Zagreus who was taken away from the House of Hades to be raised by Hecate, just before her grandfather, the Titan Kronos, overthrew her parents and declared war on Olympus itself. Trained since childhood by the Witch of the Crossroads, Melinoë is determined to slay Grandfather Time and reclaim what was stolen from her, no matter how many nights, deaths, or bottles of nectar it takes to do so. Speaking of the Crossroads, let's get acquainted with its members, shall we? Aside from the bisexual ghost princess herself, we have a lovely cast of campmates including Hecate, your magic tutor and supplier of mommy issues, now with abs you could crack a cauldron on. Dora, beloved roommate and probably not anyone important, don't worry about it. Nemesis, who's like if Yasha from the Mighty Nine had a bad attitude and more mommy issues in a magazine subscription service. Skelly, whose beard came with the promotion. Eris, the patron deity of internet trolls with the personality to match. Odysseus, on loan from his own famous adventure, Epic the Musical. Charon, who my roommate has taken to calling Boat Daddy. Moros, representation of doom and certified soft boy with abandonment issues. And Hypnos, who is also here. These people and more are waiting for their princess at the Crossroads. Come meet them today. All jokes aside, I have to say that, while I liked Zagreus a lot, I find Melinoë to be the far more interesting character overall. While she's very driven to complete her mission and take back the House of Hades, she doesn't really start out with much of a personal stake in the matter, seemingly motivated by the fact that it's what's expected and what needs to be done, rather than the much more understandable need for revenge and reparation. And this is kind of because she doesn't really understand what it is she's lost, not on a personal level at least. She's never known her parents or brother or even the House of Hades itself, but she does know that she should want it all. This is something she and the other characters are well aware of. Nemesis calls her out on not having the personal drive it takes, Kronos and Prometheus both mention she's only doing it because she's been told to, and she even has to remind herself to be angry about it, with a small shrine dedicated to the portrait of her family that you can brood at each night, which is both very funny and a little tragic. She does eventually gain that drive when she meets her father and confronts Kronos himself, but it's rather fascinating to view things from the perspective of someone driven solely by duty at first. Family is, as with the first game, a major theme here, and exploring it from this angle is really interesting. By that same token, the most interesting relationship Melinoë has in this game is with Hecate, her caretaker and surrogate mother. The two are obviously very close and Hecate clearly cares for Melinoë more than she's willing to admit, but she's kind of held back by her own hang-ups on motherhood. Hecate is very quick to remind Mel that she isn't her mother and that her affection should be saved for Persephone, which clearly bothers Melinoë as thus far, Hecate is the only mother figure she's ever known. Hecate doesn't just train Melinoë, she also consoles her, instills the need for self-care and reassures her that it's important to feel out her emotions, but not to let them control her. She has fulfilled the role of mother for Melinoë for the entirety of her life, so I can only imagine that each reminder that she isn't her true mother feels like another rejection to the poor girl, to the point that Mel tends to downplay their relationship herself sometimes. There's a segment in the game where you control little Mel playing hide and seek with Hecate that they claim at the time and retroactively when mentioned to be teaching Melinoë to hunt, but anyone with eyes can tell that Hecate is enjoying the game just as much as Mel is, and the actual reason they're doing it is obvious. Melinoë was sad and Hecate wanted to cheer her up. There's a very real love between the two of them that Hecate can't help but try to downplay because they have no blood relation. But love isn't something that can be so easily categorized and ignored, and spoiler warning, Melinoë's bond with Hecate is something that she never stops cherishing, even at the very end of the game. There's something deeper there than they really want to admit, but it's plain to see for everyone else. And hidden aspects aren't just a weapons feature, they're the second biggest theme of the story. Most of the characters initially come off as very one-dimensional, but much like in real life, there's a lot more going on under the surface that you just don't see at first. I think Nemesis is one of the best examples of this, as she initially comes across as an unreasonably caustic bitch who's just constantly angry, and she kind of is, but there's also a reason for that. Nemesis isn't just the god of vengeance, she's also the daughter of Nyx, who Kronos took away along with Malinois's family, and yet she's stuck at the crossroads playing at guard duty while Malinois is given priority in all things. Nemesis is being denied both her divine purpose and her personal desire to avenge her own mother. None of this excuses how she treats Malinois, but it does explain where the anger comes from and why she acts the way she does. She's actually a very well written character, you just kind of have to break down her walls to truly understand what's going on in her head to appreciate it. Almost every recurring character is hiding surprising depths. Moros may be the personification of doom, but he's also an incredibly awkward sweetheart who's lived a uniquely sheltered life due to his role as the guardian of the fates, and is so accustomed to being feared and unwanted that Malinois even asking him to stick around is completely unprecedented. He's even secretly an Odysseus fanboy, and he eventually takes up witchcraft because Hecate can't stand having him just stand there doing nothing all night every night. Truly the softest of boys. Eris was another surprise for me. Much like her brother, she's used to being hated and unwanted, and she seems to revel in it, but she doesn't just cause trouble for shits and giggles. Strife is, at its core, a driving force for change and transformation, and she takes that role very seriously. She may be the living embodiment of why "may you live in interesting times" is a curse, but it's not entirely out of malice. Even Narcissus, the poster boy for the one-dimensional self-absorbed character, reveals that he is actually deeper than the shallow end of an empty pool. I'm actually planning on doing a video on him soon, but I'll get into it a little bit more in the next section. But who cares about characters and themes? What about the story of Hades 2? What are you even doing in this game? What might you experience on a given night as you run off to kill your racist grandfather? Well, it's very simple. Every night you wake up, stretch out, shake off the lingering sleepiness, and then you turn to the north to pray to Frog for a productive night. O great spirit of bisexuality, I asked for your favour this long night, that I might slay mine foes by swinging both ways, violently, with an axe. Then you head out, pausing to tell your roommate to not touch your stuff while you're gone, flirt with the scary lesbian on guard duty, stop for some important advice from mom. Remember to cut out their eyes, Malinois. A witch is best served by going unseen. Grab your weapon of choice and then head out into the forest to get screamed at, shot at, grab a boon or two from whoever deigns to acknowledge your existence this night. It's implied that I'm only helping you because you're a pretty girl, but you should know that I appreciate pretty boys as well. Now if only they didn't all die horribly. Maybe even stop by Arachne's web for some gossip and some new threads.
Hello, my dear. If you ever meet Athena, could you give her a message for me?
Certainly, my friend. What would you like me to say?
Tell her she's a bitch who still can't leave for shit.
I'll pass it on, I suppose. Before you're inevitably stopped by Hecate for your union-mandated boss fight. Greetings, not daughter of mine that I love like the daughter she isn't because I'm not her mother. Are you ready for your pop quiz? Greetings, not mother. Shoot, I didn't realize I had a quiz coming. What's the subject? Survival. Oh. And assuming you survive that, you can pop off down to Oceanus, pausing just long enough to listen to Grandpa complain about the kids these days, or whatever has him tweaked out tonight. You used to be able to swallow your children to teach them a lesson, but now you can't anymore, because of woke. Dropping into Oceanus, you'll find it's largely the same. Fight some fishies, nearly get murdered by a rat, get a call from Grandma. Kronos is lucky I'm not there with you, granddaughter. My sickle would make a fine substitute for his scythe when we gave him the Oranos treatment. Perhaps you'll even run into Narcissus. I'm actually the best written modern interpretation of my legend you'll ever see. It's just too bad you can't appreciate that because you're so in love with me. I'm not in love with you, we've talked literally twice. I know that's not true, but I appreciate you trying to make me feel better. As a friend. Okay, before you finally make your way to boss fight 2, Scylla and the less important band members. So, how many times have you listened to my song on repeat? I'd rather not say. I'm going to write the best diss track in gaming history about you, lady. Please, just shut up and fight me.
How can this be?
Done so soon? So after ruining another concert and ignoring the band merch because it's way too expensive, you slide down into the morning fields, where everyone who ever died of heartbreak resides. It would be a nice place for a picnic if it weren't for the furries and the depression fog, but what can you do? Anyway, you run to the fields, collect more boons and resources, maybe stop and talk to Echo if you're lucky because she low-key gives some of the best benefits and she's lovely and deserves the world, and if you do not give her nectar, we are not friends! And then try not to get your face scorched off by an angry dog. Oh shit, oh no. Sit boy? Huh, I can't believe that worked. Sadly, you cannot pet this dog until the post-game. Yes, that is a true fact I just said. So you then have to drop down into Tartarus and fight through one final gauntlet of numbered rooms and also side rooms that you absolutely should go through for the money and boons to get to the final boss of the night. Also, maybe stop and say hello to Dad, I'm sure he could use the company. And then you find Kronos and kick his ass because this is what you've been training for your whole life and you're not gonna give up now. Just watch out for his second phase, the clock explosion is a real killer.
I can't believe my own granddaughter would do this to me. What did I ever do to you?
I'm sorry, do you not understand why I'm here to kill you?
Cancel culture!
And then you go lie down in your brother's bed, hallucinate so hard you communicate through time and return to shadows, fulfilled in the knowledge that you accomplished your mission. Now just do that again forever because life is an eternal cycle of pain and violence and...
Hey Em, I'm back. How's things? You good? I'm good, mostly. And good to see your task is underway, but change of plan, though it's a lot to ask. Up for a visit to Olympus sometime soon?
Just kidding. There's an entire second half of the game, dipshit. Hope you're ready to head to Olympus and... Wait, hang the fuck on. Hecate, how am I supposed to get to Olympus when I'm cursed by fate to die if I go above ground? Ancient bullshit problems require ancient bullshit solutions, Malinoway. Now fire up the cauldron and remember what I always say. There's an incantation for that. You're damn right there is. Okay, so after making a desperate run through the surface to collect some moss and garlic seeds for your incantation, probably 2 runs with how fast your health declines. Why does the air burn? You complete your spell and can finally play the whole second game that Supergiant bolted onto the side of this one. And to that end, you run through Ephira, busting up shade pylons and saying hello to Lady Medea on your way because she's an absolute delight. Greetings, sorceress. Wonderful night, isn't it? Have a curse for the road. Everything is more fun with a little bit of malice, don't you agree? You break down Polyphemus's door and bonk him over the head because you've got shit to do and I couldn't think of anything funny for him. Then you cross the ocean, make sure to give Cersei a fond hug and tell her you loved her in Epic the Musical.
I've got all the power, yeah, I've got all the power.
Fight across a few more ships and maybe receive some assistance from Dangerous Crowboy! Oh wait, no, it's just Icarus. Hey dude, you're looking well for someone who was rendered 2D by the ocean. Anyway, you grab a snack or a bomb from him and then run ahead to smack the shit out of Eris for being the single most annoying boss in the game. Sup, trouble? Eris, if you don't get out of my way, I will shove that rail up your ass and pull the god's damned trigger. What if I'm into that? Ah! Then you sprint up the side of Mount Olympus, stopping only to say hi to the drunkard and the hottie. Hey, Zag, my man. Digging the changes, you've made a fine woman, my friend. Actually, I'm his sister. I'm going to drink until you forget I said that. Don't you mean until you forget that? Forget what now? Greetings, cousin. I understand you have a message to give me from Arachne. I'd really rather not if it's all the same. You're not going to like it. Nonsense. You speak as if I'm unreasonable enough to shoot the messenger. Fine. Arachne says... You're a bitch? Who can't weave for shit? Okay, no boon for you tonight. No, but your boons are the best, and now I need to go fight. Hey, Prometheus. I foresaw you would say that. I fucking know you did, you smug piece of eagle dropping. I foresaw you would say that too. Just fucking fight me, you walking spoiler warning. And then he proceeds to kick you in the face until you finally beat him and storm the peak of Mount Olympus, where you face... Typhon! Of course, Kronos woke the father of all monsters. Why the fuck not? Okay, fine, let's get this over. Gods and goddesses almighty, you're fucking huge. What the hell are they even feeding you? Halt! Just play the fight music, damn you. Ew, an eyeball. And then you say hi to your uncle and auntie and cousin on Olympus, and then repeat until violence is inevitably the solution to both problems. And that is the basic gameplay loop of Hades 2. Any questions? No? Okay, moving on.
Nemesis, we've been going on like this a while, and I wondered if you'd be up to take a break. Over at the Springs.
Come to think, could really use a bath. You, I mean.
Okay, so before we get to the end of the video, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the LGBT rep in this game, because I do have some fun thoughts to share. The first game was rather well known for not shying away from depicting Achilles and Patroclus as being in love with each other, which was based as hell. But it also went the extra mile of making Zagreus bisexual, and his sexuality wasn't tied to player choice either. While you could choose to date either Meg or Than or both, Zag's history with and attraction to them was always canonical. He was narratively bisexual, not just mechanically bisexual, which was what made him such good representation. Well, guess what good decision they decided to make again for Malinois? Yeah, so you can romantically and or sexually pursue 4 characters in this game: Nemesis, Moros, Eris, and Icarus, and you're allowed to be as poly or monogamous as you prefer. However, there's a hell of a lot more implied to be going on outside of just these 4 partners. Arachne hints that she'd be interested in being more than friends if she were a human again. Hermes and Charon are implied to be more than just business partners, and there's even hints that there might be something going on between Heracles and Prometheus, which I'll be honest, was not a ship I expected to be championing, but sometimes we surprise ourselves. The funniest thing probably comes from Scylla, as Bewitching Eyes is very clearly a yearning song about Malinois, which if you believe her was actually written by Jetty, and if you don't believe her, well, you know. There's even references to gay stuff from the mythology, such as Apollo mentioning Hyacinthus. There's just a lot going on here, and probably a lot more that I haven't seen or noticed because Supergiant's writers don't sleep. However, the 2 characters I want to talk about the most, because they're the most interesting in terms of representation, are actually Chaos and Narcissus. Now, I know some people are down on Chaos's new design, and people who've seen my non-binary character design video might think that I'd be down on Chaos's new design as well, since I talked about the androgyny issue there. But I actually love what Supergiant did with them. In the first game, Chaos has this wholly alien look to them, which represents their nature as the primordial birthplace of everything. Their entire design is meant to demonstrate how different they are from every other god, and this works really well. It's my favorite in the entire game. But this is also a Chaos who's been isolated from everyone else and is disconnected from the universe they created, as well as the people within it. I don't think it's a coincidence that the most recognizable parts of their body are their hands and face, which they use to interact with Zagreus. It's literally the bare minimum required to take part in Zagreus' journey, a way to talk and a way to touch. But Chaos is also lonely, and they express that they'd like to reconnect with Nyx, and even that they'd miss Zagreus if you stop visiting. And if you do reconnect them, Nyx spends a lot of time in Chaos's realm, nearly as much as she does in the actual house. Now, we don't know exactly how much time passed between games, but we do know that Chaos spends a lot of that time with Nyx and being visited by Zagreus, which serves as a tether to both the universe and its people for them. It grounds them in reality, even if they can't actually set foot in our reality without the risk of destroying it. And we actually see that this influence has changed Chaos and Hades too. They're more willing to talk to people, even Kronos, and they seem more welcoming of company. And this personal growth is reflected in their physical form. Chaos is very androgynous, yes, but they also resemble Nyx. They wear a similar expression, they have almost identical cheekbones, and they're wearing lipstick. They've also copied Nyx's gold trim and have styled their hair in a similar manner, along with a few other details that you can see if you look at them side by side. Their design still makes it very clear that they're different from and greater than any of the gods or titans, but it's more human now. They've taken a form that's suited to interacting with people, and this demonstrates just how much they've changed. 10 out of 10 design and narrative function. I love everything they've done with Chaos in these games. What's more, I actually think the suit they wear is a really cool choice because it's so incredibly anachronistic. Nobody else in the whole of the game wears anything remotely similar to this, and that's because everyone else is situated in ancient Greece. But Chaos exists outside of time and space and is therefore unbound by the laws the other characters are subject to, so there's zero issue with them wearing modern clothing. Also, I love the design choice to have them holding the severed head of their former body with a fetus growing out of its mouth. It shows that Chaos is ever changing and evolving. So yeah, Chaos is fucking amazing. I love them. Absolutely peak character design. Then we have Narcissus, who, like I said earlier, I'll be giving his own video soon. But to give a brief summary here, he's actually a fascinating bit of Arrow Ace rep, as he pretty explicitly mentions that he was never interested in sex or romance, but because people would only ever approach him with ulterior motive and nobody really cared to try to get to know him as a person, he came to feel that nobody could care about or like him for him. What I really like is that there's this interaction where he laments the fact that nobody ever wants to just be his friend, and it always has to be about sex or romance. And Malinois agrees that she thinks there's way too much emphasis put on these things, and even admits that she's never really felt them toward anyone, which is actually what's led me to believe that she might be written to be Demi, since she does form romantic and sexual relationships with some of the characters, but only after growing very close to them over a long period of time. It's a really cool interaction, and I honestly love that they decided to make him so much deeper and more human than, well, really any other interpretation of him that I've ever seen. So yeah, Hades 2 has a lot of really good LGBT rep, both implied and explicit. It was really nice to see, and I'm glad Supergiant put in the effort to make so much of it so good. Alright, so to close this review out, here are a few tips and things you should know for when you play the game. You can give a different bottle of nectar to a different person each night at the crossroads if you have the supply, but bath salts, ambrosia, and fishing lures each lock you into an interaction that takes in-game time, so you can only give out one per night. The boon from the Transcendent Embryo keepsake is randomized and will switch to another every 8 encounters, but swapping it out for another keepsake afterwards leaves the boon intact for the rest of the night. Equipping it at the start is generally a pretty good idea since chaos boons can stack on top of each other. The bonus MP effect of the silver wheel also stays after you swap keepsakes. Don't bother with Poseidon's gain skill, it's kind of the worst of the bunch. If you hit the dodge button while charging your Omega attack, most weapons will fire it off immediately after you've moved, which can help you extend your attack range just a bit. It doesn't matter how much damage a single hit is supposed to deal, even a single point of armor will block all of it. Very useful for taking on some of the game's heaviest hitters. The duo boon between Aphrodite and Poseidon makes every enemy count as nearby for the sake of activating her effects, and gives bonus damage reduction, which turns Glamour Gain into the single most broken MP restoration skill in the game. Hestia's boons are best served when paired with the twin blades, as Scorch stacks on each hit. Also, her Gold Scent Hex is now the only way to raise Scorch above 999, so keep that in mind if you're going for the Freezer Burn build. It's entirely possible to prime all of your MP. Please don't. The best way to avoid Hecate's transformation curse is to dodge back through it, but if you're having trouble getting the timing down, then Phrenos can actually absorb it, as well as other projectiles. Don't forget to praise the frog. If you're like me and you have shit memory, you can absolutely dodge through Prometheus' flame waves instead of memorizing the patterns. You need to fully upgrade at least one aspect of the Arms of Night to start unlocking the hidden aspects, so make sure to start collecting nightmares. Remember to upgrade your Arcana, they have really useful effects and can literally save your life. Upgrade your resource gathering tools as well, it gives you the chance to find elemental infusions while gathering reagents. Hermes' success rate boon raises the percentile activation chance of most boons and effects, but it works multiplicatively, not additively. This means that if the normal chance is 25% and it raises it by 50%, the new activation rate is 37.5. Ares' Gold Scent Hex is specifically attached to the aspect of Selene for the Black Coat. All speed boost effects stack, just a quick FYI. If you're feeling up for the challenge, the easiest way to achieve the minor prophecy that requires you to beat Kronos with every Arcana card active at least once is actually to activate the Judgment card, which activates unselected Arcana after each boss fight, but can only be equipped if you have a very small amount active at the start of the night. Select the Bare Essentials, equip Circe's Trinket, and you'll be able to activate basically every single card by the time you get to Kronos. Good luck! Finally, don't think you're anywhere near done after you handled Kronos. Hades 2 has a very robust post-game, and there's so fucking much to see and do, and please help me, this game is so fucking long. So, while the wait for Hades 2 felt like forever and it's certainly not a perfect game, I feel confident saying it is the perfect sequel to Hades 1. Bigger, better and brighter than ever before, it has everything a fan of the series could want, and it is well worth your time. And I hope you enjoyed this video and found it even a little bit helpful and entertaining. Unless you're one of those losers who bitches up a storm every time a game has a female main character, you can feel free to fuck off back to the basement you crawled out of. For everyone else, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.